In 2025, India completed 20 years of the Right to Information Act, a law born not in parliament but in the villages of Rajasthan, where ordinary workers demanded one simple thing: Hamara Paisa, Hamara Hisab. 20 years later, here is the report card. Over 4 lakh appeals are pending before our information commissions. Two state commissions are completely defunct, and at the current pace, one state commission alone would take 29 years to clear its backlog. Think about that. A citizen filing an appeal today may receive an answer in 2055. Now hold that image and place it beside another. The same India runs UPI, billions of transactions every month, the largest digital payment system on the planet. The same India mobilized 10 crore rural women into self-help groups, the largest such mobilization in human history. So this is the puzzle of Indian governance. A state that can move money in seconds, but information in decades. A state that can organize 10 crore women, but cannot fill vacancies in its own commissions. We are not a weak state. We are not a strong state. We are a state of uneven capacity. And that single phrase, uneven capacity, is the master key to the entire GS governance syllabus. Every question UPSC asks on citizens charter, on e-governance, on RTI, on civil services reform, on SHG is really asking one thing. What is that thing? That is, why does the same state succeed here and fail there? In the next few hours, we will answer that question. 9 chapters, one framework. 9 chapters, one framework. Every high probability theme for August 21st. Let us begin. First and foremost, why good policies fail. And second chapter, citizen-centric governance. Third chapter, data governance and DPI. And the fourth one, governing emerging technologies. Fifth one, the accountability state. Sixth one, democratic opening. Seventh one, collaborative governance. Eighth one, administrative state. Ninth one, the governance war room. So let us begin with why good policies fail. Why good policies fail. So before we discuss artificial intelligence, digital governance, RTI, civil services, Panchayati Raj, or accountability, let us begin with one simple question. Every year, governments announce new schemes, new policies, new missions, and new reforms. Thousands of crores are allocated. New institutions are created. Technology is introduced. Yet, many public problems continue. Schools are built, but learning outcomes remain weak. Hospitals expand, yet healthcare remains unequal. Welfare schemes exist, yet deserving beneficiaries are sometimes left out. Left out. Digital services are launched, yet citizens continue to visit government offices. Why does this happen? Why? Why does this happen? Is it because governments lack resources? Is it because policies are poorly written, or is there a deeper challenge, or is there a deeper challenge? This question lies at the heart of governance. The heart of governance. And unless we understand it, the rest of the governance syllabus will appear as disconnected topics. So, today we begin with the most fundamental question: why do good policies fail? Why do good policies fail? So, in this, we are going to discuss government versus governance and the policy cycle. So, many aspirants use government and governance interchangeably, but UPSC does not. Why? Government refers to the formal institutions of state. Government refers to what? The formal institutions of the state, like the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and the permanent civil services, etc. But comes to the governance part, however, it is much broader. Governance is much broader. Governance is the process through which public authority is exercised, public resources are managed, and collective problems are solved. That is governance. Government tells us who governs, who governs. Then governance tells us what? How society is governed. That different that difference is extremely important between government and governance. So government tells us who governance tells us how society is governed. So that difference is extremely important. Two governments may possess similar resources, similar laws, and similar institutions. Yet, one may deliver better health care, better education, better infrastructure, and better public services. So, the difference is not government here, the difference is governance. The difference is governance. Government is the structure, governance is the quality of public outcomes produced by the structure. That is exactly how UPSC approaches governance. The governance question UPSC keeps asking like this: if you analyze governance PYQs over the last decade, one clear pattern emerges. What is the clear pattern? UPSC is rarely interested in memorizing schemes. Instead of that, it repeatedly asks why institutions succeed, why implementation fails, how citizens experience governance, and what reforms can improve public administration. These type of questions repeatedly UPSC is asking. Rather than memorizing schemes, they asked why institutions succeed. They asked why implementation fails. They are asking how citizens experience governance. UPSC is asking these type of questions rather than simply memorizing schemes. In other words, UPSC is not asking what did the government announce. Then what it is asking? It is asking, did the announcement improve governance? That shift from announcement to outcomes is the defining feature of modern governance. So comes to the public policy cycle, we are going to discuss what is the public policy and what is the public policy cycle. To understand governance, we must first understand how every public policy evolves, how every policy, whether it concerns education, health, agriculture, urban development, or digital governance, passes through a common cycle. What is that cycle? First and foremost, a, a public problem is identified. That is problem identification. For example, malnutrition, traffic congestion, or unemployment. Then comes to the second one. Government designs a policy. That is policy design. Like objectives are fixed, institutions are identified, resources are allocated in this second section. And third one, implementation. What is the implementation? Implementation begins departments, district administrations, local bodies, and frontline officials translate policy into action. Fourth one, services reach citizens. Only at this stage does policy become public experience. Public experience is in the fourth stage. Comes to the fifth stage, government monitors implementation, like are benefits reaching the intended people, are there delays, leakages, or exclusion, etc. Then finally, final stage. What is the final stage? Feedback stage, feedback and correction stage. Finally, feedback leads to policy correction. Successful governments do not merely implement policies, they continuously improve them. Governance, therefore, is not a one time decision, it is a continuous cycle of learning, not a one time decision. Implementation, evaluation, and reform. Now comes to the why good policies fail. Now comes to the most important question. If governments follow this policy cycle, why do good policies still fail? Still fail? The answer lies not in the one reason, but in several structural challenges. Structural challenges. What are the structural challenges? The first challenge is weak policy design. What is weak policy design here? Policies designed at the national level may not always reflect the realities of every district, village, or city. Why? Because India's diversity requires flexibility. Sometimes a uniform policy does not always produce uniform outcomes. A uniform policy does not always produce uniform outcomes due to diversity. Second challenge. What is the second challenge? The implementation capacity, like state capacity. This brings us to one of the most important concepts for governance, state capacity. What is state capacity here? State capacity is the ability of public institutions to convert political promises into public outcomes. It includes trained personnel, adequate finances, institutional coordination, administrative capability, technology, and effective leadership. Personal finances, coordination, technology, and leadership. So a government may possesses excellent intentions, but without state capacity, implementation remains weak. Comes to the third challenge, that is poor coordination. What is poor coordination? Modern governance cannot function through isolated departments. Interconnected coordination is needed among health, education, nutrition, water, sanitation, and local governments. Often deal with the same family. If departments work independently, citizens experiences fragmentation. Deal with same family. If departments work independently, citizen experience fragmentation. Good governance therefore requires a whole of government approach where institutions coordinate, share information, and pursue common outcomes. And comes to the fourth challenge. What is the fourth challenge? Is weak beneficiary identification. Many welfare programs depend upon accurate databases, outdated records, duplicate entries, or incorrect eligibility. It can exclude genuine beneficiaries also. While extending benefits to unintended recipients, this is why data quality has become a governance issue, not merely a technological issue. That is, outdated duplicate data excluded the deserving persons. Comes to the fifth challenge is weak accountability. This is most important thing, challenge. Weak accountability. If responsibilities remain unclear, implementation definitely suffers. Good governance requires clear institutional responsibility, performance monitoring, grievance redressal, and regular evaluation. Comes to the flagship example, that is CoWIN, state capacity regarding state capacity in action. Let us make these ideas concrete with one example that you will never forget, that is CoWIN. During the pandemic, India administered more than 220 crore vaccine doses administered. Behind that number stood one digital platform coordinating the union government, every state, district administrations, public hospitals, and private hospitals on a single backbone. So, real time stock availability, portability. A citizen could take the first dose in one state and the second in another. Instantly verifiable QR coded certificates. Look at this and notice the feedback loop. When early criticism showed that online only slot booking excluded citizens without smartphones, the system was corrected. Walk-in registrations, assisted onboarding, and multilingual access. One program, all six lenses. Design, capacity, coordination, last mile delivery, accountability, feedback. Whenever an answer needs one example of state capacity, you can write CoWIN. You can write CoWIN. Then comes to the policy paralysis and implementation paralysis. What is policy paralysis and implementation paralysis? Government debates often distinguish between two different problems. The first is policy paralysis. What is policy paralysis? This occurs when governments delay decisions because of uncertainty, procedural complexity, or excessive caution. Comes to the second one, that is implementation paralysis. What is implementation paralysis? Here decisions have already been taken, laws have been enacted, budgets have been allocated, yet outcomes remain poor. Why? Because institutions lack capacity, coordination, or effective execution. Both weaken governance, but in different ways. What are both? Policy paralysis and implementation paralysis? Both. For UPSC, it is important to distinguish between failure to decide and failure to implement. Now let us discuss street level bureaucracy. Now let us discuss a fascinating governance concept. Political scientist Michael Lipsky introduces the idea of street level bureaucracy. Who actually implements public policy? Not ministers, not secretariat, not secretaries, but frontline public servants. Asha workers, Anganwadi workers, teachers, patwaris, police constables, panchayat secretaries, ANMs, and municipal field staff. These officials interact directly with citizens. They operate under constraints of time, staff shortage, limited resources, and local realities. As a result, they often exercise administration discretion, administrative discretion. In practice, this means the final shape of a policy is often determined not only by its design, but by how frontline officials interpret and implement it. This explains why identical policies may produce different outcomes across districts. So, governance, therefore, is ultimately experienced at the last mile. One more thing, why this chapter matters for Mains 2026? Why is this discussion particularly relevant for Mains 2026? Because recent developments, whether in digital warfare, digital welfare, digital welfare, public examinations, service delivery, or local governance, all point towards one recurring lesson. The challenge is no longer designing more policies. The challenge is implementing them better. That is why, that is why recent governance debates increasingly emphasize state capacity, institutional coordination, evidence-based policy making, last mile delivery, and citizen experience. So UPSC is likely UPSC is likely to continue evaluating governance through this implementation lens. What is the implementation lens? So six lens implementation framework, that is one, policy design, state capacity, coordination, last mile delivery, accountability, feedback and correction. These are all the six lanes in the implementation framework. Comes to the PYQ part. India's governance challenges has shifted from designing more policies to implementing existing policies better. This is the important thing. Comes to the PYQ corner, 2022 question, that is reforming the government delivery system through the direct benefit transfer scheme is a progressive step, but it has its limitation too. Comment. This is the 2022 question. And another question, vital factors that cause ICT based projects to suffer in implementation. This is 2019 question. Restructuring of centrally sponsored schemes and flexibility for states. This question is asked in 2013. So comes to the answer framework. What is the answer framework as far as this chapter is concerned? Whenever UPSC asks why a policy succeeded or succeeded or failed, analyze it through 6 questions. What are the 6 questions? Was the policy well designed? Did institutions possess sufficient state capacity? Was there effective interdepartmental coordination? Were frontline officials adequately supported? Was implementation transparent and accountable? Were feedback and course correction built into the policy? If these 6 dimensions appear in your answer, it immediately moves from description to analysis. So, this is the way you have to write an answer. We discussed 2013 centrally sponsored question and 2016 LPG reform scheme and government responsiveness. 2017 asked vast implementation. 2018 asked policy contradictions. 2019 asked multi-level planning. Again 2019 asked collaboration in development. 2021 asked in skill development question. 2022 asked DBT question. 2022 again asked PM Gati Shakti. Here what UPSC is testing, here, UPSC is no longer asks explain a government scheme. It asks why implementation fails, why coordination matters, why beneficiaries are excluded, why institutions fail, and why policy outcomes differ. The focus has shifted from policy announcements to governance outcomes. So from this, what you have to take away? Analyze. You have to analyze every scheme through 6 lenses. What are the 6 lenses? We discussed earlier, that is policy design, state capacity, coordination, last mile delivery, accountability, feedback, and course correction. So now that we understand why good policies fail, the next question naturally arises, can governance improve by redesigning public services around the citizen instead of around government departments? That takes us to our next chapter, that is citizen-centric governance, from e-governance to good governance. Citizen-centric governance, from department-centric to citizen-centric. In the previous year, we answered one fundamental question: why do good policies fail? We discovered that policy success depends not merely on good intentions, but on state capacity, institutional coordination, frontline implementation, and accountability. Now, another important question naturally arises: even if governments improve implementation, can governance become simpler, faster, more transparent, and more responsive for ordinary citizens? Even if governments improve implementation, can governance become simpler, faster, more transparent, and more responsive for ordinary citizen? Think about your own experience. How many times have people visited government offices simply to obtain a certificate, correct a record, track an application, or resolve a governance or resolve a grievance? Very often, the biggest challenge is not the absence of government services, it is the complexity of accessing them. This is precisely why governance has undergone one of its biggest transformations during the last 2 decades. The focus is no longer simply on digitizing government. The focus is no longer simply on digitizing government. The focus is on redesigning governance around the citizen. That is called as citizen-centric governance. One question I am going to ask you: why this chapter is ultra probable for Mains 2026? Why? Recent developments such as Manamitra, NESDA, Bashini, digital public infrastructure, and AI enabled public services all point towards one larger transformation. What is that larger transformation? Government is moving from department centric administration to citizen centric governance. This is exactly why UPSC has increasingly asked questions on e governance, digital service delivery, and citizen experience rather than simply asking about digital India. So the examination is testing whether you understand how technology changes governance. The examination is testing whether you understand how technology changes governance. Manamitra, NESDA, Bashini, PM Vani, etc. Then we are going to discuss government centric versus citizen centric governance. What is this governance? Traditionally, public administration was organized around departments. Every department has had its own office, its own forms, its own records, its own procedures, and its own timelines. Citizens had to understand how government functioned. If a service required multiple departments, the burden of the coordination fell upon the citizen always. So this is government centric administration. But modern governance reverses the logic. Instead of asking how should departments function, it is asking how should citizens experience public services. Look at the changing scenario. The citizen becomes the starting point of governance designs. This is citizen centric governance. Remember this distinction. In traditional administration, the citizen adapts to government. In citizen-centric governance, a government adapts to citizen. That is the difference. The transformation did not happen overnight of evolution of governance. It evolved through four broad stages. The first stage was computerization. Paper files became electronic records. Efficiency improved, but citizens experienced very little change. The second stage was e-governance, like departments created online portals and electronic service delivery. Government became more transparent and more accessible, but departments continued to function independently. Then comes to the third stage, evolution. Third stage was digital governance. Identity, payments, documents, and databases became interconnected. Finally, we have entered the stage of citizen-centric governance. Citizen-centric governance. Technology is no longer the objective. Technology has become the instrument. The objective is a better citizen experience. Comes to the Sevottam model. What is the Sevottam model? Three pillars. India's own framework for citizen-centric administration is the Sevottam model. This is an important value addition for GS2. Sevottam rests on three pillars: citizens charter, grievance redressal, and delivery capability. First and foremost, citizens charter. Citizens charter. Citizens should know what services government provides, the standards expected, the responsible authority, and the time frame. This is under citizens charter. And the second one, an effective public grievance redressal system. A service does not end when an application is submitted. Governance improves only when complaints are acknowledged, tracked, and resolved within a reasonable time. That is under grievance redressal. And third one, service delivery capability. What is service delivery capability? Government departments must possess trained personnel, adequate technology, simplified procedures, and sufficient resources to actually deliver the promised service. So these are all things government possesses, must possesses. So notice something here clearly. Sevottam is not merely about technology. It is about building institutions that citizens can trust. That is why in this three pillars, citizens charter, grievance redressal, and delivery capabilities presented there. For example, passport Seva, Sevottam in action. This is an example. What does citizen-centric redesign look like in practice? What does citizen-centric redesign look like in practice? That is, think of the passport. A generation ago, obtaining a passport meant multiple visits, unclear timelines, long queues, and often middlemen, etc. etc. The Passport Seva program redesigned the entire journey around the citizen. Online application, then appointment based is largely, then appointment based, largely single visit processing at passport seva kendras. So this is the situation. Defi- Defined service standards and real time tracking, and through post office passport seva kendras, the service travel to small towns. The citizen no longer travels to the service. Notice the design lesson. It is a public-private partnership, but sovereign functions, verification, granting, and issuance remain with the government only. The private partner manages the citizen interface. The state retains accountability. That is the Sevottam. That is Sevottam translated into a lived citizen experience. So one process redesigned around the citizen's journey, not the department's convenience, citizens' convenience, citizen-centric. So comes to the citizens charter, promise and performance. We are going to examine this thing. This question asked in PYQ 2013, PYQ 2018, PYQ 2024. So that is why citizens charter deserves special attention, because UPSC has asked about it in 2013, in 2018, and again in 2024. Three questions across a decade means one thing: the examiner believes the promise is still unfulfilled. The promise is still unfulfilled. Why do citizens charter underperform? Why? First one, many charters are drafted as formalities without consulting citizens. First one, drafted as formalities. Citizens never consulted. And second one, service standards. Service standards are often vague without measurable timelines. And third one, charters are rarely updated. And fourth one, there is no statutory backing. The rights of citizens for time bound delivery of services be lapsed Although many states have enacted their own Public Service Guarantees Act, no union statutory bill lacking bill absent. The State Service Guarantee Acts partially fill the gap. But and comes to the fifth one, frontline staff are often unaware of the commitments made in their own charter. Here the lesson is simple. A citizen charter without service standards, awareness and accountability is a simply poster, not a promise. A charter without standards, awareness and accountability is a poster, not a promise. So citizen as a rights holder, that is the another major shift has taken place in public administration. Traditionally, citizens were viewed primarily as beneficiaries. Government decided, citizens received. Simple. But modern governance adopts a different philosophy. What is that philosophy? Citizens are rights holders. They have the right to timely services, transparent procedures, fair treatment, accessible information, and effective grievance redressal mechanism. So the relationship therefore changes from charity to accountability. So this shift is one of the defining features of democratic governance. We discussed passport seva, Sevottam in action, technology should reduce distance between digital divide, etc. Now connect. Let us now connect these ideas with recent developments, that is Manamitra. Manamitra delivers multiple public services through a familiar messaging interface. It is significance. Its significance is not the application itself. Its significance lies in reducing administrative complexity for citizens. Comes to the NESTA. This is called as the National E-Governance Service Delivery. Assessment conducted by DARPG evaluates states and the union territories of parameters such as accessibility, ease of use, information security and privacy, and end-to-end integrated service delivery. So not on the number of portals, but on citizen experience is important here. The NESDA way forward reports what? Now track the saturation of e-services and faceless Sumoto delivery. So this reflects what? This reflects the shift towards outcome-oriented governance, like Bhashini language can become an invisible barrier to governance. Bhashini promotes multilingual access to digital public services. Making governance more inclusive. Comes to the PM Vani. That is, digital governance depends upon digital connectivity. Without affordable internet, even the best digital services remain inaccessible. Connectivity comes to the connectivity. Therefore, connectivity therefore has become a governance issue. So comes to the digital divide. What is digital divide? Technology can improve governance, but technology can also exclude, like elderly citizens, persons with disabilities, people with low digital literacy, remote communities, and citizens without reliable internet may struggle to access digital services. But good governance therefore requires multiple channels of service delivery. Like digital first should never mean digital only. That is digital first. Human assistance, offline alternatives, and inclusive design remain equally important. Technology should reduce the distance between the state and the citizens, not create a new digital barrier. Many students think e-governance means online services. That is not the correct thing. UPSC thinks differently. For UPSC, e-governance is successful only when it improves public outcomes. The examination is therefore interested in citizen satisfaction, institutional responsiveness. The examination is therefore interested in citizen satisfaction, institutional responsiveness, service quality, and accountability, not merely digital infrastructure. So that is why that distinction is extremely important. That is why we discussed flagship example, Passport Seva Kendra, Passport Seva Citizen Journey Redesign, PPP front office with sovereign functions, verification issuance, retained by the state only, POPS case, took the service to smaller towns, post office, Passport Seva Kendras, Sevottam three pillars, citizen governance, citizen starter, grievance redressal, service delivery capability. In citizen-centric governance, government adapts to the citizen, not the citizen to government. So charter critic bank also, like formality driven drafting, vague standards, no statutory backing at the union level, state public service guarantees acts partially fill the gap, poor staff awareness, no revision cycle. Comes to the NESDA framing, shift from counting portals to measuring citizen experience, accessibility, ease of use, security, end-to-end integration. So digital first must never become digital only. So comes to the PYQ corner, 2013 question. Thou citizens charters have been formulated by many public service delivery organizations. There is no corresponding improvement in the level of citizen satisfaction and quality of services being provided. Analyze. This is 2013 question. Next question. The Citizens Charter has been a landmark initiative is ensuring citizen-centric administration, but it is yet to reach its full potential. Identify the factors which hinder the realization of its promise and suggest measures to overcome them. This question asked in 2024. Citizen Charter limitations as an instrument of accountability. This question asked in 2018. So look at the questions, look at the pattern. Earlier UPSC asked what is a citizen charter, but today UPSC asks why do citizens still struggle despite digital governance? The examiner is evaluating citizen experience, not digital infrastructure. Every governance answer, as far answer writing mains 2026 is concerned, every governance answer should mention accessibility, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, citizen experience. This is the language of modern GS2. If you want to remember only 5 ideas from this chapter, you can remember these ideas. That is citizen-centric governance, Sevottam Model, citizen as rights holder, digital divide, technology as an instrument, not the objective. This is all regarding this particular chapter, citizen-centric governance, citizen-centric administration. Now, another important question arises. Citizen-centric governance depends upon accurate, secure, and interoperable information. Like, right? Without reliable data, even the best designed digital services cannot function effectively. This takes us to the next chapter, that is data governance. Data governance and digital public infrastructure. In this previous chapter, we understood that modern governance must become citizen-centric. Technology, however, is only a tool. It cannot improve governance unless a government possesses accurate, trusted, secure, and interoperable information. So think about this. Can a welfare scheme identify the right beneficiary without reliable data? Can a welfare scheme identify the right beneficiary without reliable data? Can vaccination programs reach every citizen without accurate records? Can digital payments, tax administration, healthcare, or disaster management function effectively without trusted databases? The answer is obvious no. Data has therefore become the foundation of modern governance. But this also raises an equally important question: how should governments collect, share, protect, and use citizens' data? That is precisely what data governance seeks to answer. So comes to the first question: why? Why this chapter is ultra probable for Mains 2026? During 2025-2026, India witnessed discussions on digital public infrastructure, the Digital Personal Data Protection Framework, AI-enabled governance, consent-based data sharing, and the future public digital platforms. These appears to be different current affairs. They are not. They are not. They all represent one larger transformation. That is, government is moving from document-based administration to data-driven governance. So UPSC is therefore not interested in technology alone. It is interested in how constitutional democracies govern data. That is what UPSC is interested in. That what is data governance? What is data governance? Many students believe data governance means collecting more data. It does not. It does not. Data governance means ensuring that public data is accurate, secure, interoperable, ethical, and used only for legitimate public purposes. Think of data governance as answering five simple questions. What is the answer? Answer. Data governance answers. What are the five simple questions? Who collects data? Who stores it? Who can access it? How is protected? How are mistakes corrected? How can mistakes be corrected? If governments cannot answer these questions, digital governance cannot succeed. Cannot succeed. Good governance in the digital age depends not on the quantity of data collected, but on the quality of data governance. From e-governance to data governance, what is that? The second ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission, in its report on promoting e-governance, made a very important observation. Technology by itself, it does not reform governance. Processes must first be redesigned. This is called business process re-engineering. Processes must first be redesigned. Only then should they be digitized. This is called business process re-engineering. In an inefficient process is simply digitized, citizens continue to experience inefficiency only a computer screen. Good governance therefore requires process simplification before process digitization. This remains one of the most important lessons for digital governance today. What are the five challenges of data governance? Modern governance face modern governance face five structural challenges. What are the five structural challenges? First, data silos. Departments often maintain separate databases that cannot communicate. The result is what? Fragmented governance. That is data silos. Data silos is what? Departments often maintain separate databases that cannot communicate. The result is what? Fragmented governance. Comes to the second one, poor data quality. Incorrect records, duplicate entries, and outdated information. These are all led to wrong beneficiaries, policy errors, and implementation failures. Comes to the third one, that is lack of interoperability. What is lack of interoperability? Different departments use different standards without interoperability. Citizens repeatedly submit the same information again and again. Fourth one, that is privacy and cyber security. What is privacy and cyber security? The more governments share information, the greater the responsibility to protect it. The more governments share information, the greater the responsibility to protect it. Comes to the efficiency. Efficiency must never compromise privacy. Fifth one, limited citizen control. What is limited citizen control? Citizens should know what information government possesses, how it is used, and how mistakes can be corrected. So data governance must therefore remain transparent, accountable, and rights respecting. So that is important here. Digital public infrastructure. What is digital public infrastructure? Let us understand one of India's greatest governance innovations, digital public infrastructure or DPI. Think about roads, railways, and electricity. These are public infrastructure. They enable countless activities. Similarly, digital public infrastructure creates shared digital foundations upon which government, citizens, and innovators can build services. Examples like Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, ABHA, and the account aggregator framework, etc. Government is no longer creating isolated application. It is creating digital public rails upon which many services can function together. This reduces transaction costs, improves inclusion, strengthens transparency, and encourages innovation. During India's G20 presidency, digital public infrastructure was projected as a global public good, a model of digital development that is open, interoperable, and population scale. So comes to the flagship example, that is UPI, interoperability in action. If digital public infrastructure feel abstract, remember one image. What is that image? A single QR code at a street vendor's cart. Any bank, any app, one standard, that is UPI, the Unified Payments Interface, built on the rails of the National Payments Corporation of India. National Payments Corporation of India. Billions of transactions every month. By some estimates, a large share of the world's real-time digital payments now happens on UPI. Zero cost at the point of use. Zero cost at the point of use. From the largest retailer to the smallest tea stall, the same infrastructure. And it is going global linkage with Singapore's Pay Now and acceptance arrangements in the UAE, France, Sri Lanka, and Mauritius. Now notice the governance lesson here. UPI's value did not come from one government app. It came from a shared open standard that every bank, every company, and every innovator could build upon. Interoperability created the network. The network created inclusion. That is what digital public rails means. So comes to the DPDP Act, that is Digital Data Protection Act, Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and Constitutional Data we are going to discuss. What is that? Governance. as governments collect larger volumes of personal information. Another important question emerges: who protects the citizen? This is where the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 becomes important. The Act recognizes individuals as data principals with rights over their personal information. Entities that determine how personal data is processed, as known as data fiduciaries. The framework emphasizes consent, purpose limitation, data security, and accountability. So note that status carefully, because status precision earns marks. Status precisions earns marks. The DPDP rules were notified in November 2025, and the Data Protection Board of India has been established, but implementation is phased. The substantive obligations, notices, consent standards, breach reporting, and data principal rights take full effect only in 2027. So the correct sentence is the exam in the examination hall is this. You have to write like this: the DPDP framework has been notified and is being operationalized in phases. It is not yet fully enforceable. This sentence you are going to write in the examination hall whenever you are asking to write this DPDP Act. So governance always involves balancing multiple constitutional values. On one side, efficient administration; on the other, privacy, transparency, and public interest. This balance will increasingly define governance during the coming decade. So data sovereignty. What is data sovereignty? Traditionally, countries protected their borders, their economy, and their natural resources. But today, another strategic resource has emerged, that is data. This gives rise to the concept of data sovereignty. Data sovereignty: countries increasingly seek to ensure the critical public data is governed according to their own constitutional, legal, and national interests. Some scholars also use the expression data colonialism. Data colonialism to describe the possibility that excessive dependence on external digital ecosystems may weaken national autonomy. Whether one agrees with the terminology or not, the governance lesson is clear. Digital infrastructure must strengthen strategic autonomy while protecting constitutional values. Let us connect these concepts with recent developments. DPI Act 2047 demonstrates India's vision to expand digital public infrastructure beyond identity and payments towards integrated public services. Account aggregator shows what consent-based data sharing can improve financial inclusion without sacrifice individual control. DHRUVA Dhruva illustrates how standardized digital addresses can improve service delivery, emergency response, and governance efficiency. So comes to the data standardization. Data standardization, recent policy discussions highlight that good governance requires common standards, common definitions, and interoperable databases. So every one of these initiatives is fundamentally about building trust. So trust is the real currency of digital governance. How UPSC thinks: students often think digital governance means more technology, but UPSC thinks differently. UPSC asks whether technology creates better governance. Does it improve efficiency? Does it improve transparency? Does it improve citizens' convenience? Does it improve inclusion while simultaneously protecting privacy, rights, and accountability? So, technology is therefore not the destination, it is the instrument. It is the instrument. Good governance remains the destination rather than technology. Trust is the real currency of digital governance. Comes to the PYQ corner, 2023 question, electronic transfer, 2018 use value, 2019 CSE ICT challenge, 2020 fourth industrial revolution, 23 digital governance, 24 interactive service model, 2025 user centric design. Again and again asked questions. Comes to the 2023 question, e-governance as a critical tool of governance has assured in effectiveness, transparency, and accountability in governments. What inadequacies hamper the enhancement of these features. E-governance has assured in effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. What inadequacies hamper the features? So this question asked in 2023. 2018 question, e-governance is not only about utilization of power of new technology, but also much about critical importance of the use value of information explained. So this is the questions, these type of questions are asked in UPSC. Trust is the real currency of digital governance. So comes to the UPSC pattern, technology itself never the answer. Technology succeeds only when it improves service delivery, transparency, accountability, citizen governance, trust. Comes to the mains 2026 framework, benefits skeleton should be like this: benefits, challenges, then constitutional values, then way forward. Comes to the way forward part, way forward should be standards in interoperability, privacy safeguards, phased DPDP, citizen correction, rights oversight. This should be the answer like this. However, does not make decisions increasingly. Those decisions are being assisted by artificial intelligence, algorithms, predictive analytics, and automated systems. Can these technologies improve governance? Certainly. Can they also create new constitutional challenges? Absolutely. That brings us to the next chapter, that is governing emerging technologies. That is AI, surveillance, and digital constitutionalism. This chapter is not about artificial intelligence. It is about digital constitutionalism. So in the previous chapter, we understood the modern governance depends upon high quality, trusted, and secure data. But another important question naturally arises. I discussed earlier. What happens when governments no longer merely collect data, but begin using artificial intelligence, algorithms, predictive analytics, facial recognition, and automated decision making? Can these technologies improve governance? Certainly. Yes, certainly. Can they also create new risks for liberty, privacy, equality, and democracy? Absolutely. That is why the next frontier of governance is no longer digital governance alone. It is constitutional governance in the digital age. That is governing emerging technologies. So why this chapter is ultra probable for Mains 2026? During 25 and 2026, India witnessed major discussions on AI governance, the India AI mission, deep fakes, algorithmic decision making, digital public infrastructure, platform regulation, and responsible AI. So these appear to be technology debates, but they are not really. They are governance debates, because every constitutional democracy must answer one fundamental question: How can technology improve governance without weakening constitutional rights? That is the question. Fundamental question. How can technology improve governance? How can technology improve governance without weakening constitutional rights? That is exactly what UPSC expects you to understand. Simple. So we are going to discuss from digital government to intelligent government. What is intelligent governance? We discussed in we are going to discuss opportunities and risks here. Intelligent government. Governance has evolved through three stages. What are the three stages? The first stage was computerization. Government stored information digitally. Then comes to the second stage. What is the second stage? Digital governance. Government delivered services online. Today we have entered the third stage. That is intelligent governance. Government systems can increasingly predict, recommend, analyze, and assist decision making. Artificial intelligence can help identify crop diseases, predict floods, detects tax fraud, manage traffic, improve healthcare, and support public administration. So technology is therefore moving from record keeping to decision support. But remember something important. Algorithms may assist public decision making. They cannot replace constitutional accountability. So comes to the important one, that is AI and public governance. Artificial intelligence offers enormous opportunities. It improves efficiency, accuracy, predictive capability, and evidence based policy making. But it reduces routine administrative work, helps optimize resources, and enable better public service delivery. However, artificial intelligence also creates serious governance challenges. Risks like algorithmic discrimination. Algorithm learns from historical data. If historical data contains bias, algorithms may reproduce or even amplify the bias. So biased data reproduce bias only. So this is known as algorithmic discrimination. This is known as algorithmic discrimination. Let's imagine simple thing. A welfare database incorrectly rejecting eligible beneficiaries because of data mismatches, or an automated recruitment system disadvantaging certain applicants because of historical biases. So here technology then become source of exclusion rather than inclusion. So let us ground this in one field. Literally, let's say Telangana Saagu Baagu initiative, developed with the World Economic Forum, brought artificial intelligence to chili farmers in Khammam district. Example, AI enabled advisories for pest and disease development, disease management, soil testing, quality assessment of produce. Participating farmers reported better yields and better prices. Now extract the governance lesson, because that is what UPSC will reward. First, the AI worked as decision support. The farmer remained the decision maker, and the extension system remained accountable. Second, the advisory only as good as the data behind it. Data quality is a governance question. And third one, inclusion. A smallholder without a smartphone must not become invisible to the system. So one example, one opportunity, accountability and inclusion together. So what is the Article 14 and algorithm relation? Accountability. Now let us connect to this discussion with the Constitution. What is the Constitution? Article 14 guarantees. Article 14. Article 14 guarantees equality before law and equal protection of laws. In constitutional governance, public decisions must not be arbitrary. Suppose a citizen is denied a government benefit because an algorithm classified them incorrectly. Can the citizen challenge the decision? The answer is yes. He will challenge, he can challenge, because constitutional accountability always remains with public institutions, not with the software. This brings us to an important governance principle, that is algorithmic accountability. Algorithmic accountability. Whenever governments use AI, they must ensure that algorithms are transparent, the algorithms are explainable, the algorithms are auditable, and subject to human oversight. Algorithms may assist governance, but constitutional responsibility always remains within the state. Please remember this line. Algorithms may assist governance, but constitutional responsibility always remains with the state. Surveillance and the constitutional state. Surveillance, surveillance, and constitutional state. Modern governments possess large volumes of personal information, identity records, financial transactions, travel history, health information, communication metadata. These databases can improve national security, crime investigation, public health, and welfare delivery. However, they also increase the power of the state. This creates one of the most important questions of modern governance. How much surveillance is compatible? How much surveillance is compatible with constitutional democracy? How much surveillance is compatible with constitutional democracy? The Supreme Court answered this in the Puttaswamy Judgment of 2017. A nine-judge bench, a nine-judge bench, which recognized privacy as fundamental right. Puttaswamy case, nine-judge bench. The Supreme Court answered this in the Puttaswamy Judgment of 2017, a nine-judge bench which recognized privacy as a fundamental right, intrinsic to life to personal liberty. At the same time, the court clarified that privacy is not absolute. Now, note the test carefully here, because this is where most students lost precision. The plurality opinion in Puttaswamy laid down a threefold requirement for any restriction on privacy. Threefold test. Simply legality, legitimate state aim, and proportionality. The plurality opinion in Puttaswamy laid down a threefold requirement for any restriction on privacy. First and foremost, legality. There must be a law. There must be a law. Second one, legitimate state aim. Legitimate state aim. The law must pursue a legitimate purpose. And third one, proportionality. Proportionality. A rational nexus between the objective and the means adopted, ensuring the restriction is necessary and not excessive. Proportionality means a rational nexus, a rational nexus between the objective and the means adopted, ensuring the restriction is necessary and not excessive. Justice Cowell, Justice Cowell, in his concurring opinion, additionally emphasized procedural safeguards against abuse. Procedural safeguards additionally emphasized procedural safeguards against abuse. And in the other case, Puttaswamy 2, in 2018, the court applied a structured proportionality test. A structured proportionality test. Legitimate goal, suitable means, necessity, and balancing. Legitimate goal, suitable means, necessity, and balancing. In the examination, write it this way. You are going to, like, Puttaswamy 2017 requires legality, legitimate aim and proportionality. Procedural safeguards for emphasized in concurring opinion, justice call, and the structured proportionality test was applied in the Aadhaar judgment 2018. That single sentence shows the examiner you know the law precisely. That is why you are going to write this way. So comes to the ethical AI. Ethical AI. Governance is not merely about using artificial intelligence. It is about using responsibly. Responsible AI requires what? Fairness, transparency, accountability, safety, privacy, human oversight, and inclusiveness. These are not technical principles, they are governance principles, like fairness, transparency, accountability, safety, privacy, human oversight, and inclusiveness. These are all governance principles, not technical principles. So technology must ultimately serve citizen, not control them. Technology must ultimately serve citizens, not control them. So let us connect these ideas with recent developments, like India AI mission demonstrates India's ambition to build responsible, inclusive, and innovation driven AI ecosystems spanning compute capacity, foundation models, data sets, and skilling. Deepfakes illustrate what? Deepfakes illustrate how AI can undermine public trust, electoral integrity, and individual dignity. So, governance therefore requires authentication, platform responsibility, and digital literacy. Comes to the NAT grid. What is NAT grid? NAT grid shows how integrated databases can strengthen national security while simultaneously raising questions about privacy, oversight, and accountability. Comes to the platform governance. Recent discussions highlight the responsibility of digital platforms to address misinformation, harmful content, and algorithmic transparency while protecting freedom of expression. So, the common theme behind all these developments is not technology, it is responsible governance. So, comes to the how UPSC thinks. UPSC how thinking about this thing, responsible governance. Students often think artificial intelligence is a science and technology topic. UPSC thinks differently. UPSC treats artificial intelligence as a governance issue, a constitutional issue, an ethical issue, and an administrative reform issue. So, technology is never evaluated in isolation. It always evaluated through constitutional values, institutional accountability, and citizen rights. This distinction is extremely important. Algorithms may assist Algorithms may assist governance, but constitutional responsibility always remains with the state. Previous questions, 2020, fourth industrial revolution and its impact on government functioning. This is 2020 question asked. 2019 question, we discussed the factors that make ICT based government projects underperform. Then 2023 question, that is inadequacies hampering effectiveness, transparency, accountability in e-governance. We also discussed this thing. So comes to the answer writing part. Answer writing part. Whenever UPSC asks about AI, data, digital governance, surveillance, or emerging technology, analyze the issue through four dimensions. Four dimensions. What are the four dimensions? Four dimensions: governance, governance opportunities. First dimension, governance opportunities. Better public service delivery, predictive governance, administrative efficiency, evidence based policy making, And comes to the governance risk, second dimension. Privacy, algorithmic bias, digital exclusion, surveillance, opacity, that means opaque decision making. And comes to the constitutional perspective, the third dimension. Article 14, Article 21, Puttaswamy case, rule of law, accountability, human dignity, etc. And comes to the final thing, that is way forward. Way forward. In the way forward, you have to write ethical AI, explainable AI, human oversight, independent audits, privacy safeguards, risk-based regulations, constitutional governance, etc. One more thing, if you are going to remember from this topic 7 ideas, please remember these 7 ideas. That is intelligent governance, algorithmic accountability, algorithmic discrimination, Article 14, Puttaswamy, ethical AI, and digital constitutionalism. So these are most important. That is why you are going to understand, you are going to remember these 7 ideas. So technology, however, cannot create good governance. Technology cannot create good governance unless public institutions remain transparent, ethical, and accountable. Citizens must be able to question authority, seek information, and hold governments responsible. That brings us to the next chapter, that is accountability state. Transparency, accountability, and institutional integrity. So we are going to discuss the next chapter, that is accountability state. That is transparency versus accountability, the architecture. So till now we discussed how governments can improve service delivery, data governance, digital administration. But another fundamental question naturally arises: who governs the government? Who ensures the public power is exercised fairly, transparently, and according to law? Then who protects citizens against arbitrariness, corruption, and misuse of authority? These questions lie at the heart of constitutional democracy, because good governance is not measured only by efficient administration, it is equally measured by accountable administration. So this chapter is about the institutions that transform government power into public trust. So comes to the first thing, why this chapter is ultra probable for mains 2026. In October 2025, the RTI Act completed 20 years. In November 2025, the DPDP rules were notified. Around the same time, debates intensified on information commission vacancies, Lokpal's effectiveness, proactive disclosure, and the amendment to the RTI's Act's privacy execution and the RTI's Act's privacy exemption. These are all discussed. So at first glance, this appears to be separate issues. I am already discussing each and every chapter, but they are all answer one common question. What is that question? How can democratic institutions remain accountable to citizens? How can democratic institutions remain accountable to citizens? That is the governance question here. UPSC increasingly asking. So let us we discuss transparency versus accountability. Students often use transparency and accountability as if they mean the same thing, but they do not. Transparency means what? Citizen, Citizens can know how government functions, how decisions are made, how money is spent, why policies are adopted, who took the decision. Transparency answers what happened, but accountability begins after transparency. It means public authorities justify, justify, and take responsibility of their action. So accountability answers who is responsible. Transparency makes government visible. Accountability makes government answerable. There is much difference between visible and answerable. So a democracy requires both. What is the accountability architecture here? Rather than studying institutions separately, Let us understand how they work together. Let's say think of accountability as a four-layer architecture. Four-layer architecture. Comes to the layer one, internal accountability. Internal accountability. Departments monitor themselves through performance reviews, internal audits, departmental vigilance, and administrative supervisions. These are all under the internal response. So comes to the layer two, that is independent oversight institutions. What are the independent institution oversights? Over, what are the independent oversight institutions? These include Lokpal, Central Vigilance Commission, Controller and Auditor General, Information Commissions, Human Rights Commissions, and other statutory bodies. These are all oversight institutions, independent oversight institutions. Their role what? Their role is institutional oversight. Comes to the layer three, that is democratic accountability. So like parliament, state legislatures, parliamentary committees question our media and the judicial review hold governments accountable. In this, governments accountable. And comes to the layer four, that is citizen accountability. What is the citizen accountability? Like citizens themselves become partners in accountability through RTI, Right to Information Act, social audits, public grievance system, citizen charters, public participation, and democratic engagement. So accountability does not depend upon one institution; it depends upon entire ecosystem. So that is the thing here. Then comes to the RTI, the foundation of transparent governance. RTI at 20. What is the report card from October 2025? Transparent governance among all accountability mechanisms, the right to information occupies a unique position because citizens cannot question government unless they first know what government has done. The second Administrative Reforms Commission described RTI as the master key to good governance. The objective was not merely providing information, it was changing the culture of governance from official secrecy to institutional transparency. So one concept deserves special attention, that is section 4. That is section 4. Many students focus only on filing RTA applications, but the real philosophy of the act is proactive disclosure. Government should voluntarily publish important information without waiting for citizens to ask. This reduces litigation, improves trust, and strengthens democratic accountability. The strongest RTI application is the one citizens never need to file because information is already available. So, on 12th October 2025, the RTI Act completed 20 years. The Civil Society Assessment released on that anniversary the report card of information. Information commissions tell a sobering story. What is that sobering story? More than 4 lakh appeals and complaints were pending before information commissions as of mid 2025. Some commissions were defunct with every post vacant. Several others functioned without a chief information commissioner. In roughly 98% of cases where a penalty could have been imposed on erring officials, no penalty was imposed. And remember the judicial anchor, that is in Anjali Bharadwaj versus Union of India in a 2019 case, the Supreme Court directed timely and transparent appointments to information commissions. The vacancies persist regardless. Add to this, the RTA Amendment Act 2019, which empowered the Union government to determine the tenure of service conditions of information commissioners. A change critics argue weaken institutional independence. This is most important. Union control over tenure and conditions. They lessen The lesson is for your answers. For your answers is precise. The RTI Act's challenge today is not legislative design, but institutional capacity and independence. So comes to the transparency in the digital age, the RTI DPDP question. What is the RTI DPDP question? We already discussed in something else in previous classes. Modern governance creates a new constitutional challenges. How should governments balance transparency with privacy? On one side, citizens have the right to information, and the other individuals have the right to privacy. Recognized in Puttaswamy, this debate sharpened after the DPDP Act. Here is the precise position and precision matters. Section 44, Class 3 of the DPDP Act amends Section 8, Class 1, Subclass J of the RTI Act. So earlier personal information could be disclosed if a larger public interest justified it, and information that could not be behind to parliament, that could not be denied to parliament, could not be denied to a citizen. So the amendment broadens the exemption for personal information. Supporters argue it merely codifies the privacy protection the Puttaswamy requires. Critics what is saying, including former judges and transparency campaigners, argue it weakens the public interest override the made RTI effective against corruption. So for the examination, do not take a side carelessly. Present both positions, then conclude with constitutional balance. This is going to write in your answers. That is the way you have to write an answer. Present both positions, then conclude with constitutional balance. Neither transparency nor privacy is absolute. Good governance requires a constitutional balance between the right to know and the right to be let alone. So here DPDP Act section 44.3 amends RTI section 8 class 1 subclass J. So this is the place you are going to examine, and you are going to keep an eye. You have to. So comes to the institutional integrity. Transparency alone does not eliminate corruption. Corruption. Institutions must also possess integrity. Integrity means acting fairly, ethically, impartially, and consistently. So institutions such as Lokpal, Central Vigilance Commission, Department Vigilance, whistleblower mechanisms, and internal audits all contribute towards institutional integrity. Comes to the consider Lokpal, the institution was created by the Lokpal and Lokayuktas Act of 2013 after decades of demand. Yet its record shows that a large share of complaints are disposed of on grounds of format rather than decided on merits, and prosecutions remain rare. So the lesson is one you must remember, that is, creating institutions easy, building credible institutions is difficult. Credibility depends upon independence, professionalism, adequate resources, and public confidence. So comes to the one flagship example, that is MGNREGA social audit. Citizens as auditors. So citizens as auditors, here is the accountabilities most memorable example, that is section 17 of the MGNREGA. Section 17. Section 17. So section 17 of the MGNREGA mandates that Gram Sabha conduct social audits of works executed in their village. The first Indian law to embed a citizen to embed citizen audit into a national program. Undivided Andhra Pradesh pioneered the institutional model and independent society for social audit, accountability and transparency, whose teams read muster rolls and expenditure records allow in the village square, while the workers themselves verify whether the records match reality. Irregularities are recorded. Responsibility is fixed and recovery is followed. Meghalaya went one step further. In 2017, it enacted the first state law extending social audit across schemes. Notice what happened here. Accountability moved from the auditor's office to the village square. This is the layer 4 of the accountability architecture, that is citizens as auditors working in practice. So let us now connect these ideas with recent developments. RTI 20 reminds us that the next challenge is no longer creating transparency. It is ensuring timely disposal, effective information commissions, and a strong proactive disclosure. RTI DPDP debate illustrates the constitutional challenge of balancing transparency with privacy. And Lokpal demonstrates the institutional creation alone does not guarantee institutional effectiveness. Social audit shows how accountability can move from government towards citizens. Then community themselves became partners in governance. Citizen charter demonstrates the accountability is meaningful only when service standards, timelines, and grievance mechanisms are clearly defined. So notice something here important. Every one of these developments is fundamentally about strengthening public trust. So students, RTI thinks RTI is simply an act, but that is not the correct thing. UPSC thinks differently. RTI is a governance philosophy. Similarly, Lokpal is not merely an institution. It is part of the accountability ecosystem. Social audit is not merely a program, it is citizen-led accountability. So UPSC therefore evaluates institutions not individually but as components of democratic governance. So So this is the flagship example for this. Comes to the PYQs, 2013 Citizen Charter, 2015 Whistleblowers, and 2016 People's Participation, 2018 Citizen Charter, 2024 Citizen Charter, 2025 Transparency and Accountability. So the pattern, UPSC has moved from institutions to accountability ecosystems. Never discuss RTI alone. Connect RTI to transparency, transparency to accountability, accountability citizen trust to good governance. That is the linking, chain linking system. So comes to the mains answer framework. Whenever UPSC asks about RTI, transparency, accountability, Lokpal, or institutional reforms, analyze the issue through 4 dimensions. That is governance benefits, transparency, public trust, reduced corruption, better decision making, citizen empowerment, then governance challenges like delays, vacancies, weak enforcement capacity constraints, privacy concerns, etc. Then comes to the constitutional perspective, rule of law, accountability, right to information, right to privacy, constitutional morality, etc. Then way forward. What is the way forward? Strong proactive disclosure, timely appointments, independent institutions, technology enabled transparency, citizen participation, institutional integrity. So comes to the revision capsule. Remember only these 7 ideas. What are the 7 ideas? Here is transparency versus accountability, accountability architecture, RTI as the master key to the good governance, section 4 proactive disclosure, RTI 20 report card, RTI DPDP balance, then institutional integrity. So transparent institutions, however, cannot alone deliver good governance. Citizens themselves must increasingly participate in planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So governance must therefore move beyond government towards a society. That brings us our next chapter, that is democratic, deepening, participatory governance, and decentralizing. That is we are going to discuss in the next class.